So anyway, I'm sure as you pulled into UP today, you saw the rows of growing sunflowers. It's tradition for, of course, the University of the Philippines to present these to the fresh batch of graduates each year, um, as a parting gift. I'm happy to say that this year, one of those sunflowers is for me. Yay! I'm graduating. Yay! Ay, salamat. You think it's a big deal. I'm sure kasi you have like 30 other friends who probably have their grad pics as their profile pictures on Facebook, di ba? Well, it's a really big deal for me. Kasi I didn't graduate grade school. And I didn't go to high school. So this diploma that I'm gonna get in June is the first diploma ever in my life. I'm sure you're wondering how that happened. How is that possible? Well, I'm going to have to start at the very beginning. That's me. I don't know if you recognize the uniform, but I won't say the school. I was an average student. I went to an all-girls Catholic school. It was kind of elite. I was, unremarkable. I got neither A's nor F's or C's. I hated doing my homework. I never reviewed for my quarterly exams. I was really just, your average student. There was nothing special about me. But then, life happened, and something very interesting happened.
What started out as a life of lavish and comfort for me, my family, my kids, eventually turned out into nightmare of nothingness. I won't go into the details of the telenovela, but bad decisions were made. And so when I say life of nothingness, it meant absolutely nothing. We went bankrupt. So, and then my husband had to go. So I was left to tend for 4 kids, and I had 2 other people in the family. At that time, there was no money, absolutely no money, no bank accounts, no savings, not even furniture. We didn't have any furniture, no beds, no Christmas trees, nothing. So I was left with a certain, decision to make certain priorities as to how am I going to live my life and take care of my kids. So I had no money for education. I had to look for a job, which took me away most of the time from my kids. And so Mika had to tend on her own educational system of homeschooling, and she also did it for her siblings. It was not a very, good time in our lives, but looking back and seeing where I am right now, I'd go through it again after seeing my kids. But at that time, it was a very, very difficult journey for all of us as a family.
To make things simple, we always told people that we were homeschooled. But we didn't have an affiliate school. We didn't have money for a tutor. The truth was that we were out of school youths. And for the first 2 years, we were doing nothing but just bumming around. I kept in touch with one friend from that grade school. I think she's in that picture also. I kept in touch with her. And sometimes we would text each other and, she would ask. She'd tell me about her day. She would say, "We're learning polynomials today." And I would think, oh my gosh, I don't know what that is. You know what? I better go find out what that is. So I'd go to our library, I'd find an algebra book, and I'd teach myself. My friend would come back and say, "Oh, we learned about biology today." And then I'd run into the library and I'd pick up the biology book. This went on and on until I realized I was finishing the entire library. And I realized that I was learning on my own. I was giving myself an education. I encouraged my siblings to do the same thing. I taught them how to read, how to add, how to divide, subtract, multiply. This was even more difficult for my younger 2 siblings because they had no formal schooling whatsoever. My second sister finished grade 2. And as my mom mentioned, I finished grade 5. But Other than that, we really did not have any formal schooling. Bit of trivia about myself. I'm a huge nerd. I promise this is related. I'm a huge nerd. I love Star Wars. I love Lord of the Rings. This got me into some online fan groups. I swear this is related, guys, huh? What happened with these online fan groups was that I got introduced into a whole spectrum of people. While my batchmates were wondering who they're going to take to prom, wondering how to talk to boys or something, I was talking with businessmen, doctors, lawyers, UP professors, artists, writers, performers, and these people were treating me as a cohort. They were addressing me on a contemporary level. They were my best friends. From there, they gave me my first jobs, little writing assignments here and there, or if they had big events and they needed a runner or an assistant, they'd let me do it. Of course, I was hungry to learn, so I accepted these jobs. And eventually, I actually got a sales and marketing job at an IT company just because I knew these people. Of course, as I met new people throughout my life, there was always that one question that came back to haunt me. Because when you would meet someone new and you start a conversation, they would always ask, "Hey, where'd you go to school?" And I say, I didn't. And they'd be like, paano yan? And I actually got tired of explaining myself. And I thought, you know what, maybe I should think about going back to school. And, as time went on, my batchmates, I realized, were graduating. And they had their nice grad pics and everything. And I was like, you know what, maybe I want that too. Maybe I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to go back to school. So, one day, literally one day, I walked into DepEd. And I said, wala po akong high school diploma. How do I go to college? And it was so funny because they couldn't even grasp my situation. The first thing they said was, bakit ang galing mo mag-English? Bakit marunong ka magsalita? It's like they couldn't fathom that I taught myself, or they couldn't fathom that I educated myself, or that I learned how to speak or be literate through any other means other than a high school experience. They directed me towards the ALS, which is the Alternative Learning System exam. Now, the ALS schedule is a little weird because it happens towards the later part of the year when all of the entrance exams are done already. And then they release the results months later. So I thought, I'd have to wait 2 more years just for this? I mean, okay, maybe this is too much trouble. Halatang I was impatient, no? Maybe this is too much trouble, and I already have a job. Don't people go to college to get a job? So why am I doing this? And I thought, you know what? I'm going to apply to one school, and if I don't get in, maybe I just won't go for it. But guess what? I passed. I passed UP, and at the age of 23, I had my first day of school.
I think that as a parent, I don't know if some of you are parents already, but as a parent, there is no greater honor and, pride that, you feel upon seeing your children, your daughter or your son graduate with diploma. It's like an achievement that you also give yourself. But for me, personally speaking, there are no words to describe what I feel, the pride that I have upon seeing Mika, and even with my 3 other kids. Her sister is on her 2nd degree, also here in UP. She's in fine arts. She finished UPOU and she's taking fine arts. My son, the brother, just is now in UPOU as well. And the sister is also applying for UPOU after she takes her ALS. So this is something that they did on their own. All I could do at the time when I was trying to make ends meet, trying to look for money for food every day, payment for rent. We didn't have a house. We didn't own a house. I mean, we had a house, but we were renting. And utilities, water, electricity, all that. And I was, I had a very menial job. So my pay wasn't even enough. So that alone, seeing the 4 of them strive, especially Mika, there are no words, no words. So that alone is already an achievement that, I feel like it's something that will make her go through life, no fears, no apprehensions as to what she can achieve for herself, which I think, personally, if there is something that I can, whatever little advice that I can give you, is that never underestimate yourselves. Never, your ideas. Never underestimate your ideas, no matter how small or how unimportant it may be. You have an idea one day, if you have to write it down, write it down. And your interests, your talents, your skills, what are you good at? Do it. Make yourselves happy with what you are doing right now, even while you're studying, so that, life doesn't just become like a routine. You're striving to go to where you want yourselves to be after 10 years, but, persevere and never undermine your abilities as a person. At the same time, do not also undermine your weaknesses, because once you understand your weaknesses, then all the more you will see your strengths as a person. And, knowing these talents, knowing these shortcomings that you have in yourselves as persons, you can make the right choices for yourself. So for you to be happy. So it's, you don't get to a point wherein you're tired and you don't want to go on. Life is not that way. Life is beautiful. You should make happy choices. You should be happy, every day, and look forward to something every day. Learn something new. I'm sure it's something that you read every day, but for somebody who's gone through what I have gone through, this is something that is very important. If I could go back to your ages now, I would have made better choices, but I did not. So, as a parent, I'm very, very proud of my kids. And standing before you right now, I'm not really used to talking to to people. All I can say is that if you make the right choices, then that will be a pedal to catapult you to the road that you want to take later on. To, however you want to live your lives later on. And always remember that at the end of the day, you can always ask yourselves, did I make the right choice today? No matter how small the choice is. And am I a better person today than when I woke up this morning? Just a piece of advice from me.
So, as a mature student, my college life was a little different. Of course, there was a time when life caught up. It was hard to balance work and studies. But there were also some very, very, very good advantages. I was older and I was wiser. I knew the value of every single day in this university. I knew the value of every single lecture, kahit na nakakaantok. Hello, Physics 10. Diba? I knew the value of every single lecture. I knew the value of every single peso that was spent on my tuition, because after all, I was paying for part of it. I knew that I wanted to study in a course that I wanted, not a course that I needed, or not a course that would just give me money. It's 5 years of your life here in the university. Why not study something that you really, truly want? Philippine society has this sort of notion that, you have to stay in school so that you can get good grades, so that you can go to a good college, so that you can get a diploma, so that you can have a good job, so that you can have a good life. But is it really like that? Is it really a cause and effect kind of thing? Because in this linear sort of setup, we forget the very essence of education and we forget the very essence of learning. Suddenly, it's all about getting the diploma to get the job. It's not about learning. We forget that it's not that simple. It's a lot more complex than that. After all, we do have billionaires who haven't graduated high school. And we have class valedictorians who have mediocre jobs. My experience has taught me a few things. One is that learning can't be quantified. When I entered UP, I had no idea how to write a research paper or a thesis. But I did know how to talk. I knew that I could talk my way into anything. I knew how to pitch. And these were skills that no high school experience would have ever given me. It was more important because I had these skills that I could use in real life. And maybe that's what it's about. It's about taking the skills that you learn here and using them in your lives. If, say, for example, a sculptor were to take an engineering class and he fails epically, his professor wants to disown him and tells him to drop out or something. But what if, because of that engineering class, he develops an interest in nuts and bolts and screws and then makes a grand sculpture out of them? Would you say that that class is entirely useless? Maybe not. Learning is constant. It's free-flowing. And it doesn't exactly have to boil down to a letter like an A or an F, or a grade, or a number like an uno or a cinco. Another is that learning takes time. Different amounts of time for different people. When you're 17 or 18, you don't exactly know who you are yet, and you don't exactly know what you want. And yet, it's at this point when we're making a life-changing decision. You're choosing your course in college. You're choosing how to spend the next 4, 5, or maybe 6 years of your life. It's a big, big deal. What if teenagers were allowed to experience life first? What if you were allowed to find out what it is you really want? What if you were allowed to find out what it is you really want to fight for? What your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, before you actually dedicate 5 years of your life into one field of study? Don't you think that maybe your college experiences would be a little different? Don't you think that maybe you'd get more out of it if it was that way? Last is that there is no time limit in learning. My story isn't amazing. You hear, you go online and you hear stories all the time. You hear about somebody who maybe took 45 years to finish law school. And then on the other end, you hear about somebody who completed their PhD in 2 years or something. You'd normally think that the one who completed it in 2 years is a genius, but whoever said it was a competition. It shouldn't matter how long it takes you to get to where you want to go, whether it takes you 45 years or whether it takes you 2 years, as long as you get there. And it shouldn't matter how long it takes you, as long as every single day that you're on your journey, you're making that conscious decision to keep going. You're making that conscious decision to be present and to excel in every single day. Anyway, I may not have had a prom, or I may not have been like class valedictorian, or I may not have been the president of some org in some high school group, but I did have possibly the best education that I could have ever received, and all because I didn't have one at all. I had experiences that no formal education could have ever taught me. And it all started because I had that conscious desire to learn. I had that choice to excel every single day that I picked up a book from a library, or every single day that I was here in UP. I chose to excel, to be excellent every single day, to be excellent to other people, and to take that excellence and apply it in the world around me. It's all about creating excellence on your own terms. It's all about learning all the time on your own terms. And while I may not have had an educational background, that portion is still blank on my resume. This is my version of excellence. And because we are in UP, this is my version of honor and excellence. Thank you very much.